So we'll start with, first of all, making a mandala offering as a token for requesting the teachings, and then Geshe will lead the way with refuges bodhicitta as a way of correcting our motivation. Sashi Pukye Joshin Me Ram Ri Ram Ling Shi Ni De Gen Pali Sangye Shindo Mikte Owa Ijokunamda Shila Chupa Shoidam
Guru Rana Mandala Dayami Sanji Chedan Soji Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dami Kyabsuchi Dagi Chushi Jibin Chonam Ji Rola Benchi Sanjin Drupara Shu Sanji Chedan Soji Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dami Kyabsuchi Dagi Chushi Jibin Chonam Ji Rola Benchi Sanjin Drupara Shu Sanji Chedan Soji Chonam La Chanchu Badu Dami
Kyabsuchi Dagi Jinsogi Be
Chonam Ji Rola Benche Sanji Drupara Sho Kangi Tuzi Nizone Tawa Tamche Bambi Chere Tambi Chunu Denzebe Kodam Jela Chanze Lo. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Samalo Kibu yes.
Geshe is hoping that all of you are happy and well. Happily ever after.
Tenda Kazil Lojongi Samdi Muji Chanjugu Semrumbuchi Jongsul Sajiti Tire.
So during this set of teachings, we have been looking at a text that teaches mind training. Now, the text is called Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun, and so far we have covered the preliminary practices for generating the mind of enlightenment. And today we're going to begin with the main part of the text, which teaches how to develop bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. So, cultivating the conventional awakening mind.
Teta Tambo Samdishiagi Sambakibu Sadi Zo di Sambakibu di Chanjugu Sem Jongi Nyamle Yana and Sambakibu Yonachi the Timena Teneta Semkibu Sadi Ten Tambigi Semkibu Sadi Kaburendo Asngazuta Kuvinalaya Randa Jen Samalo Chagdangi Any Monsumgi Sem Jimni Yubi Kabdula and it's Kunguyug Netsu Tomatu Yata and it's Gatchesan is some Tamatu Kabdulaya and it's Samba Pustobu the Magiba Yon Deadi Kori Chini said the race Sungudasra.
And in beginning this session with Geshe saying that he hopes that all of us are happy or well, particularly here is we are going to look at a section that teaches how to develop bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. Through developing the mind of enlightenment, we make our mind happy. And without developing bodhicitta, it'd be difficult to develop ultimate happiness. So we recognize that ourselves and others, when our mind is governed by anger and attachment, first of all, we don't see reality. We don't see the way that things exist in the correct way. Also, when a mind is governed by anger and attachment and so forth. Our mind cannot become vast and spacious. It actually becomes quite narrow and uptight, which is clearly explained to be one of the drawbacks of samsara.
Terda chanju semjonggi nyamlen de mena chanju semjonggi nyamlen de mena ani shenjinzingi sambadi yongtogumdo asra shenjinzingi samba mayong mase ani ranchinzin shukchembo shuch chaya ro ta rani chikpo chinzingi samlo di ani chik shukchi ondige ani 통투 독섬 가르 총바이나야 아니 지 소소 마기비 귤 로데야디 nganzurta 참말로 nyongyo 쪽으로 왔으라.
Without the mind of enlightenment, we will not come to cherish other living beings. And without cherishing other living beings, let alone not being able to cherish others, also a self-cherishing attitude will become stronger and stronger. And with a strong degree of cherishing ourselves, whoever we see, whatever we meet, whatever we hear, whatever we think of, it will all be compounding a mind to be a narrow state of mind, an uptight state of mind,
레베나타 찬주 샘종 베 찬주구 샘 종진이 오늘 탄내기 찬주구 샘 그때 기용스 칸바스 라고라 기용스 칸딩이 베나 켄진 남가 벨라 소바 아니 게실라르 탐발라 소바 투소페 딱 오늘기 찬주구 샘 냠레 나니 툭 용수 추딩이 기우 탐바 투소 아니 베 가두이나야 켄 칸르질레 테바이나야 통도 독섬 가르 총바이나야 랑기 샘 투야디 자원이니 여서 말했어. 자원이니 여 말했어. 베나 셴기 비기게 아니 남규 게제시에다 아니 때니 수수기 샘 투바이나 아니 디 수수수 경레스 야오르무지 송지 여레스라 셴기 군줄레 때네 랑기 샘기 되기 라마 주세지 아니 어디 어디서 인지미지 상담다나 대수 상담 투바이나 아니 소수의 세만 투바지 로 아니 약속 가르를 채바이나야 소수 파베 우친 데투야지 여바나 소수 냠렌치야 로종치야 참을로야 안 디팽그레스 로
So without the development of bodhicitta, we will not come to cherish other living beings. So looking at the development of bodhicitta, and looking at masters of the past that have come to develop bodhicitta fully, to the point in which the mind was completely taken by bodhicitta. They have internalized bodhicitta to the point in which whoever they met, whoever they spoke with, the mind was never distressed or was never disturbed. Masters such as Langen Tampa, the author of this text, Namkapel, they have developed bodhicitta to this utmost extent in which whoever they met, the mind did not become disturbed. So when we look at the way that we react to other living beings, to other people, for example, that we encounter when we talk to them or when we observe the body language, often our mind does get disturbed. And you can say in some sense that it is our fault that we allow our mind to become disturbed by observing others or by speaking to others and so forth. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said a few times, do not let your mental happiness do not allow your mental happiness to be destroyed on account of others, in a sense that do not let others take away your mental happiness and well-being. So in order to do that, then we develop our mind, we train our mind, we study, we reflect, we employ the methods for training a mind so that the mind will not become disturbed, the mental happiness will not be destroyed on account of others.
terda da chanju sem jongzu songdi chanju sem dilya ani kunzu chanju sem jong rimba tendum sam jong rimbas dinal ni songdos kanji kunzu sem ge da tendum sem ges sem ge yondige sem ge dilya namba ni the dogyut samenalo ta gombachik bares tindichik yungores ra.
So when we go back to Namkapel's mind training like the rays of the sun and pick up on the point that we left off in the previous session, we are going to begin the section that explains the main body of the text, teachings the 2 minds of enlightenment. And as such, we have 2 stages that we're going to go through in our training. So first of all, the stages for training a mind in developing conventional bodhicitta, and then the stages of training a mind in developing ultimate bodhicitta. But we'll begin with the stages of training a mind with conventional bodhicitta.
Tinanda kunzu chanjugu sem sedi kandajiri slawandi the ninji sambi kunelani ninji samba ninji lotop tindiji toni and simjan tamji tundrup tungingi and sanji komajik maduna tamandu sambi toni sanji komba tenni lodi kunzu chanjugu sem sedi chagoris.
So then first off, we begin with conventional bodhicitta and thinking that first of all of the motivational force of compassion. So we develop a strong determination to be of benefit to others through compassion. And with compassion, we think that I have to act for the welfare of others. And without attaining the state of Buddhahood, I will not be able to act for the sake of others, to work for the sake of others. I have to attain the state of Buddhahood in order to be of benefit to others. This is conventional bodhicitta. Just a second. Sorry, I'm choking on the incense.
To mountain yak chuniyo marsada.
Tadi ngadi ke gadu chiro.
Chidani kuj chadorum chigi ngema daram salaya ritraba chigi tani sangshu dan nima chogi tawa santan ta santan chobapi sangshu tindijilaya ene nachi chadarwa nani ane mengan tazi chidi keran tama tonya mangtashi labisa ko tamachi sanjanya tan ane chadorum chigi kadina tes there's shojin zamsan chigda odini naunala thodro cheta ne ani pheng so ne adini yungo sares.
The others that when they offer incense, they like those billowing clouds of smoke. Chödrön Rinpoche says that actually it's not that good or healthy to have so much smoke around you. There was one person staying in retreat at the mountains on top of Dharamsala, and he used to make a lot of offerings, a lot of sang offerings. So this is the powdery kind of incense, producing like clouds of smoke. And at some point he got sick. He had like a lung condition. He went to the hospital to see the doctor, and the doctor told that meditator, that person that was doing long retreat, that it seems that he's been smoking too much. His lungs were kind of full of smoke. So Chödrön Rinpoche said that actually when you offer incense, it's good to offer just a little bit. You don't have to go overboard with those offerings. Anyway, it's good to offer a little bit, not too much.
Teta re kunzu chanjugu semsedi zo ninji le tengeres. Ra ta ninji slawondi ta chida manche kengerosra ina ninji slawondi dunga da tanduk sambati. Ninji said dunga da tanduk sambati res. 다 동아의 찬두기 삼바들이야 캡치존 용거도 하서라 랑 동아의 트라반디비 삼바디 랑라미비 제와 랑기 뿜핀치 아니 닌닌들라 소바 부부푸투라 소바 파마푸투라 소바 동아의 트라반디비 삼바디 코테 and somebody that chori we sort of redo asra that simjan tamjilaya dongar ginnar dongar mendibigi simjan tamjile mingni donga the tandugi somebody ani chanjug semgi ani ta nyelen senamandu gyun dumbasena mandu tindigi nyinjiti ani chori maybe somebody ya jargo gores tindijile ta nyinji chembos lagundo asra.
Anyway, so we've been discussing bodhicitta, which is the mind that wishes to attain the state of enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. And the development of bodhicitta depends on developing compassion. So compassion is the wish to be free from suffering, and wishing for freedom from suffering can be developed to different extents. To begin with, we can wish ourselves to be free from suffering. We can wish ourselves to be free from suffering and pain. This is a sense of compassion and sense of care that we extend to ourselves. We can extend that further on. We can wish those who are close to our heart to be free from suffering, our family, our parents, our children, our brothers and sisters, close or distant relatives, friends, close or distant friends. We can wish them to be free from suffering. And still, this sense of compassion is partial. Then we can extend a sense of compassion to observe all living beings, all sentient beings, and to wish them to be free from suffering. So with that wish for everyone without exception to be free from suffering, with aspiring for that to happen, we develop a sense of compassion that is impartial, without bias. This is what we call great compassion.
ngazuta ninjila ya jamba mebaina rata jamba meba tanga tanga droina ta ninji di o ninji dinji di kia e no samsung samlo tenden course sigros ro ta di kia yoda mese di gyunsen la samdang ko chik ro gyunsen thongbaina ani ninji di kia yoba thongtuya da ninji di kia la ya ani bezun chia bezun la ya ani and
without training in the development of this type of compassion, we might wonder, is it really possible to develop that sense of compassion, great compassion? Is it really possible? Well, maybe it's impossible. So to investigate that, we need to employ reasons to see the validity of the development of compassion. And when we see the reasons for developing that, or the reasons or the logic behind developing that type of compassion, we put effort into our practice. We become enthused about developing compassion.
디 제단 레단 대바이나 소소소 비게 아니 기부용야지다 소소소 대바용야기 타블럼을 전대하지 마도 지금 심전 탐지기 된다라야 성당딩인데 베담 니뮤까마세도 땀 미시버터로 차되어서 이내야 된다 고말이야 아니 지 만준도 미츠마임바 심진 요도 졸이야 성당바이나 대바 문딩이 좀 두문도 아니 동안 등이 좀 두문도 세바세바이나 탐제로 지규기 대원 대바다 동안 문대바 지규임바디 간주 리비 포투그러스 리비 포투그러스라 더 딘디 리비 포투 아니 탐제 동안 문대바임바나 탐제 동안 더 타워쇼선 비 상로디 케어바치 게 고야지임바디 샘레 녜바니야지 텐데 용구요서레스.
And still, when we look at our current state of mind, when we look at the degree to which we have developed our mind, it might seem that the development of great compassion is impossible. It is not possible to develop that degree of compassion, particularly because when we look at the world around us, at least when we look at the number of human beings living in this world, we have 6 or 7 billion people. It seems that the vast majority of people in this world are mainly concerned with their own welfare, with the happiness, welfare, money, possession, and so forth. And so few of them are really into developing compassion that encompasses not only human beings, but also all other living beings. Finding someone that has done that is like finding stars during daylight. So then thinking about the process by which we approach the development of compassion that is not only extended to us as human beings, but extended to all living beings, we begin with, first of all, recognizing that all of us equally want to be happy and no living being wants to suffer. All of us want to be well and no living being wants to experience pain. So we then use that as the basic reason, and we use such reasons in order to surmise that all living beings are seeking happiness, and that is a valid basis for the development of compassion. Which means that the development of compassion is based on a logical process.
데레다 두스니 아니 균전 상담이 아니 닌지려야 콤바기와나 간zam질려야 심전 탐지 동아다타는 제마로 냠비 로디 낭기기야 숙천보 용야지 딘디깔야 다 동아다타와디 지금 마찬가지 탑면도 삼비기 상로디에 용구여레스 다 동아다타와디 나라랑기 최고 삼비기 상로디에 용구여다 나라랑기 제발이야 다당가 당한다발이야 카듬 디타발이라 매반자 딘디기 제통행기 아니 다 조베 산지 고모르 뭐지디 마탑나 탐면도 삼비 로지께니 아니 산지 고모 토 디비기 로디 아니 잔주고 샘세기도스 다 딘디지 기비 카둘라야 아니 장라 레비기 아니 지 동하 카리나 쇠토야 심지 시엔 대와촌나 나 카리 총 삼성기 로타 제투야기 로고디 기기여서리스로.
So then we train in compassion. We take up this training, and after some time, once we have put a lot of effort into our training in compassion, naturally the thought wishing for freedom from suffering arises in our mind. So we then give rise to the thought, may they be free from suffering. And we continue to meditate on compassion to the point in which we think, I will set them free. I will free other living beings from suffering. And yet when we investigate our ability to do so, we recognize that currently we don't have the means for liberating all living beings from suffering. And we think, should I attain the state of Buddhahood, I will have the ability to free other sentient beings from suffering. And thereby we think, I will become a Buddha to free others from suffering. Come what may, we think, come what may, whatever difficulties or experiences I have, I will continue to work in order to develop my own state of Buddhahood for the sake of other sentient beings.
다 건조 찬주고 셈세 다디 아니 셈 깨봤삼 레마도 대응어마 아니 디기 산지 공방 데 코나를 때니 아니 산지 공부 줍투그랬으나 투구요 말았어.
Now you might wonder, if I develop bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, conventional bodhicitta, would it be enough just for conventional bodhicitta, just for me to develop conventional bodhicitta to become a Buddha? It's not enough just to develop conventional bodhicitta in order to become Buddha.
간서나 조베 산지 공부 토발이야 바르도 정인 조디 고긴 조디 시지드바생인데 간저 뉴몬비 드바당 시지드바니 나니 아니 시지드바세디 조베 산지 공부 토발이야 바르도 정인기 아니 객조디 시지드바 차고연자 아니 콘조 찬주고 샘디게 아니 시지드비 무진님보디 제투고요 말했어. 제투면서 비기다 아니 찬주고 샘 깨봤자마자 마도 Geshe 아니 드바티기 무기 님부 체토면서 아니 무수 산지 토발이야 무수 산지 토투고면도 왔다 샘디 토기 투고면도 왔어.
And when we develop conventional bodhicitta, we're aiming at attaining the state of complete Buddhahood. And what prevents us from attaining complete Buddhahood? The main hindrance, the main obstacle for complete Buddhahood is what we call cognitive obscurations. Cognitive obscurations are the main things that prevent us from becoming Buddha. If we develop just conventional bodhicitta, it will not become an antidote for cognitive obscuration. Conventional bodhicitta is not the main antidote or the actual antidote for conventional obscuration. So without eliminating cognitive obscurations, we will not be able to attain the state of Buddha.
텐자 텐동 찬주고 샘 인지미 깨고야 돼 뒤차고레스. 라 아니 찬주고 샘 시온디 군주 찬주고 샘다 텐동 찬주고 샘이 용고야 쪼디 데려도 왔으라. 다 텐동 찬주고 샘세디 인지미 깨고야 그 내가 쪼디 군주 찬주고 샘 코날 되는 산지 공부 줍투고 매와인자 산지 공부 줍는 고고요리 다 군주 찬주고 샘 코날 되는 줍투고 매와자 아니 텐동 찬주고 샘 깨고레세 어 딜라야 수자나다 야부페요레스라.
So we have to develop ultimate bodhicitta in order to eliminate those cognitive obscurations. And therefore, we need to develop those two types of bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. If we develop only conventional bodhicitta, we will not be able to attain the state of Buddhahood. So therefore, our unattainment of Buddhahood will depend solely on our ability to develop the two types of bodhicitta.
데르다 다 텐동 찬주고 샘디 가르레스 라운디 텐동 찬주고 샘디 쪼디 샘 코랑 공온디 동반이 온솜 또비 이시질이야 아니 샤기오레스.
Now, if you wonder what is ultimate bodhicitta? Ultimate bodhicitta is an exalted wisdom that perceptually realizes emptiness.
데다 동반이 온솜 또비 이시쌈기 이시케바쌈기 온 텐동 찬주고 샘라야 드고레스나 텐 드고 마레스 메는 예란 다점발로 소바 예란 로바 파발로 소비 귤라 동반이 온솜 또비 이시 용구 열데이냐 텐동 찬주고 샘 드고 마레스.
So taking ultimate bodhicitta to be mainly a perceptual realization of emptiness, you might wonder, is it enough for me to develop only that, ultimate bodhicitta and a perceptual realization of emptiness in order to become Buddha? Well, to develop just that, again, is not enough because we have other types of practitioners. We call them arhats. Here, arhats or solitary realizer arhats, shravakas and pratyeka Buddhas. They have developed a perceptual realization of emptiness, and yet they're not enlightened. They're not Buddhas.
다 가르치는 드고 마레스 라운디 냐란 로바 파발로 소바 냐란 다점로 소비 규기 투규기 아니 동반 용어솜 또비 이시디 아니 드바니 수시비게 뉴몬바다 시시 드바니 수시비게 시시 드비 우지 님보 마인자 우지 님보레 드고 메바인자 아니 텐동 찬주고 셈 샤투고요 마레스 차고 마레스라.
So arhats, those that have attained the state of liberation, do have in their mind stream a perceptual realization of emptiness, and yet they don't have the actual antidote to cognitive obscurations. And since they still don't have the actual antidote to cognitive obscurations, they don't have the means for accomplishing the state of Buddhahood yet.
다들 동반 용어솜 또비 이시 임바 칸실라 텐동 찬주고 샘라야 칸데스 드고르스다디 아니 텐데 동반 용어솜 또비 이시 데라야 초 군주 찬주고 샘기 아니 초여바 신시 군주 찬주고 샘 여바 딘디치 차바이나 간지 찬주고 샘기 샘비 동반 용어솜 또비 이시 지케투바이나 다디 텐동 찬주고 샘 로디 시지디비 운일라야 드투고요레스.
So you might wonder, how then do I use the perceptual realization of emptiness, an exalted wisdom that realizes emptiness perceptually, to be a cause for Buddhahood? Well, it needs to get the support, the assistance of conventional bodhicitta. So in this way, we combine the two. We combine an ultimate bodhicitta, a perceptual realization of emptiness, together with conventional bodhicitta. And the combination of these two can act as an actual antidote to cognitive obscuration, so that when they're eliminated, we can attain the state of Buddhahood.
아니 탑다 셰르 손들 되고 그래서 잔주구섬도 또머니 또비 셰르 손들 거스 대도 된다 찍버렸어 군주 잔주구섬 정도 된동 잔주구섬 좀 림번님보 손들 거스 간지 된다 찍버려도 그러 아니 조상 된드니비기 삼바드메나 산지 공부 섬전 탐지기라야 미니 아니 니지디 찬이 섬전 탐지기 체도 산지 공부 톱되기 삼바지메나 동반용원선 또비 이시 간르징이 바이나야 아니 CCTV 님보를 로무트바 라 아니 동반용원선 또비 이시 메나 아니 조산 톰도기 삼바 간르지여 바이나야 아니 산징우스 아니 톱무트바 세거다 CCTV 응원이를 로무트바 대자 니가 손적 토니 라 니가 손적 토니 여바이나 아니 자와 가리나 드비자 간르징 바이나 타두 드비자 간르징나 드투고 여반자 this hundred goddess the patient with the namjin samzalaya chala patient cha namka la proele choba ni ro choba chi yoba samjigi purtu mundas choba yeba yoni yoma mena purtu mar yoma yoni yeba mena purtu niga yoba na cha na la purtu ba na shingi semjong grimba niga didemba na ani midi sangi salaya rotu gores semjen tamji druptungi sangi komba di druptu yores ro.
Often we say that we need to combine the two sides of method and wisdom. So combining the two aspects of method and wisdom here is illustrated by the two minds of enlightenment, the conventional mind of enlightenment and the ultimate mind of enlightenment. And without combining these two minds of enlightenment, we're not going to be able to attain complete Buddhahood. So to attain the state of complete Buddhahood, we need to begin with the development of compassion, the wish for others to be free from suffering, and to take it to the point in which we think that I need to free other living beings from suffering, and for that end, I need to become a Buddha. So without developing that wish for Buddhahood in order to free other sentient beings from suffering, we're not going to be able to eliminate cognitive obscurations, even if we develop a perceptual realization of emptiness. But then also, if we develop only a perceptual realization of emptiness without conventional bodhicitta, without the wish to attain the state of Buddhahood in order to free other sentient beings from suffering, again, we're not going to be able to eliminate cognitive obscurations. And therefore, we need to combine both method and wisdom, the conventional mind of enlightenment and the ultimate mind of enlightenment. And often these two, method and wisdom, are said to be like two wings of a bird. So for a bird to take off and fly up, it needs two wings. If it is missing one of them, if it is missing either the right wing or the left wing, it's not going to be able to fly up. So also, in order for us to reach the state of complete Buddhahood, we need the two wings of method and wisdom, the conventional mind of enlightenment and the ultimate mind of enlightenment.
아니 가주스기 제도가 뒤쪽에 아니 샘라야 디기 용거요레스 라 간주 샘라 마기바 용야디 동한 체대야 참말로 samlaya stambayna shimju yabu chebayna rangi lotobki mandami wanki rangi lotobki mandam di ani ken khari chebayna ya ani chi susula ya thamandi magibi gyula drodeji jacha jadamata yungu yoros ra tisunguda lama khoma soinere mong ani kewa tamba soinere sangi inata tirang sungudo asra ani susu lotobki dambayna ken kandrach the chebayna tigi rangi semgi truk mares sem magiba sotu mares ro digi tando ani sem kibr droya gulda jenla ya pento chiya gula ya ani drotu do asro nganzu ti che ma do kharesna nganzu pigi gi nyamlen che di nyong tawa nyamlen che gi shuk chong taya nyamlen che la tuzu tanya di nyong tawa wangi nganzu nyamlen di che tugo marasra di matu di ani khar che ba ina ya mi nam gyur ji tem ba ina ya susu semle ya ma gi ba yong de tindi yong ya di kanji ani susu gi lo jong gi nyamlen gi dang me ba di sewu se jang res tarwa re.
So when we put those stages of practice into action, our mind is made happier. It gives us happiness and well-being. But often it does not happen because our determination is still feeble. Our determination is insufficient. And that means that when certain conditions are encountered, they do not become favorable conditions for us. They become hindrances for us. They detract from our training in the development of bodhicitta. That happens when our determination is insufficient. Whereas when we look at the examples set forth by the great masters of the past, the great beings of the past, when they encountered unfavorable conditions, not only did not detract from their training, also they used those conditions as conditions to bring more benefit to others, conditions for developing a greater degree of mental happiness. So then when we look at currently our endeavor to do so, we see that often our ability to deal with those conditions which are not favorable, our ability to do it is too little. So our perseverance is too little, our ability to do that is too weak. We give that too little time. So it means that when we encounter adverse conditions, even as far as someone is looking at us the wrong way, or is the body language is something that we kind of feel offensive, it's enough just for a slight thing to happen for our mind to become deflated. So those are indications that our determination in the practice of mind training is still not enough. We still need to work on developing a greater determination.
There's that indeed, and Sam Rumbuchi number need any John Yagi Ra, any Tindig Zachi Vitachi, any Sam John Rumbanim Butolaya, Lavialaya, any Jerome Somanaji, Tambujachin Tuba Mountains, part of Jean Luc Tamjeta, Tamanin Senkund, Yamsland in Drobaina, any Tarsanji Komba, Samjan Tamji turned to Tungi, Ranjin Nigape, any ten to Devalaya, Gertungi. Any nobody Legaza that D Tolaya Malamja, D Tolaya Shugdrum Goyadi, that gave them but some log, any catching dragaton, this one goes so the Chabaj Puba in a Chanju Samrumuchi, the Rangula, any Keba, Magiba, never con the pair cheddar, and get Lama Conjosumlea, Chobapu, Samsung. Didn't give each our courage by Naya. Ani Rangulaya, ani Chanju Sam Rumbuchi, the Magiba, never con pay any yin some same thing is some Tintani, and it's Sosa Division Chebaina, then it to Tundo Jiganaloya, Chavalap Chim, which drew to Yadi, Yunguyoros, Ungiva Tambatu Choyori, and Chon Chogras.
So in this way, we take up the training in the two precious bodhicittas. And as Lama Tsongkhapa said in one of the verses that he composed, first of all, we begin with extensive study. Then Lama Tsongkhapa said, whatever he studied done to his mind as instructions for practice. And at the end, day and night, I worked hard in applying them to our practice. So this is also laying out the process by which we take up the training in the two types of bodhicitta. First of all, we begin with studying the topic, how to develop the two types of bodhicitta. And when we develop knowledge of the two types of bodhicitta, we start to make aspirations to develop them in our mind stream. And then we also take them up in our training. And when we do so, then even when we incorporate the practice of bodhicitta into whatever we do in a spiritual practice, even as far as making offerings in the morning, when we make offerings to the lamas, to the objects of refuge and so forth, we do that with the motivation of bodhicitta. May the precious man of enlightenment not yet born arise. May that born have no decline, but increase more and more. So with that motivation, we make offerings. And also, whatever virtuous action we take, be it small or big, we also then think, I'm going to do that so that through this virtuous action, may the precious bodhicitta not yet born arise, may that arise not diminish, but increase more and more. Whatever action of purification or accumulation we undertake, we incorporate that into our training so that if we combine that with that bodhicitta motivation, within a short span of time, would be able to turn our training to be very effective.
아니 로종 치비 갑둘이야 냠네 치비 갑둘라 아니 겐 가리 난 테시고레스 라 나주 오먼지비 나로라야 트라시 나나마단 린직신스 아니 트라시 비기 차와치비 갑둘이야 아니 트라마시바치 가킨지 간조 레탕보와라야 용용 바레스 라 나주 페는 직댕기 차와치 비기 친디기 아니 penjo lonjo drubaina ya tela parchi ani tamandi bi ke mambu thegi yoba nganjo ngosum thongor di yobaina tawad thamjin kimbi kombu drugi kablaya ani kachi duri chondi parchi yoya da jacha jatam barwas o dinza tindi khabdulaya ani bi parchi ki sema thong khabdula ani lo dreamchin ani lama jawa seda chebalaya so tamni ani riba drum goyadi pe masiba kechimbu resro
and when we relate it to the accumulation of the collections and purifications of negativities and obscurations, when we undertake a study, a training, a practice, it is likely that we will encounter some difficulties, some adverse conditions. But just like Chandrakirti said in his supplement to the Milway, when you undertake auspicious activities, it is not unlikely that you will encounter inauspicious circumstances. Particularly, we see that when you're still a beginner in your training, it is very likely or very easy that we will encounter difficulties or complications, hindrances for training in virtue. So not only it happens to us in our spiritual training, we can see that also it happens to us in whatever we do in our worldly activities. So when we try to amass some wealth, possessions, when we go to work, when we're trying to undertake other worldly activities, we can see that often we encounter many conditions which are adverse conditions that make it difficult for us to find success. So needless to say that when we aspire for highest enlightenment, we will also find that, at least at the beginning, there would be quite a lot of conditions which will be unfavorable. So we need to make sure that the mind remains focused, that we develop that attention, that focus. And particularly when we encounter difficulties, then we can acknowledge them and still continue with making those aspirations, supplicating our lamas, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for our mind not to stay away or not to become too disturbed, not to become too deflated when such adverse conditions are met.
초카올 드러나야 비기 아니 사발로니 아니 체딩이 샤다지기 나온 대바이나야 아니 파르치페 몸 태여러스 러 딘상 안도 지 사전 딘디질이야 아니 추 비기 다지 난추 장에 담메 장이니 파지 드바이나 안도 비기 난추 장이 야차치 롱고메와스 딘디지 길 데베카둘 텔레짱 아니 추체야 파르치치와 로 아니 야시야도 용거로스 베나 소소 냠용 로즈리야 아니 지비 파르친 로툭 듄질이야 때 아니 지 파르신 그 람람 고 거를 때즈라운디 오 다들 인심이 지 자대로 진 로고서리 삼성 소와 슉 전부 끼뇨였어 자제 자다 뭐 아니 땅이 겐라야 땅아 오마된 땅아 자대로 로기스 이마지를 쉬방이 겐기 빼졌다야 파르치다 자원이는 딘디 상당요만 빼지 아니 빼지 찬상 따고 그랬으 앞에 아니 지금이 님의 내부손이 타마다 지 빼자로 찬상으로 때네 아니 타주들이야다 게르무지 샤우신도 시온디 땅 니마 아니 지 테스직 신은 잠샤는 조여바는다 빼사도 삼성로지 신이 솔용이었어 로 솔용이었어 땅이 다가 출시로 저러다.
Anyway, on the side, Geshe says that in the monastery where it comes from, most people, if not all people, are constantly involved with studying, reflection, and so forth. So that whichever direction you're going to turn to, you can still see people that are mainly involved with the Dhamma. But here our situation is different, at least in Australian society. You can say that comparing those who are training in Dhamma and those who are not training in the Dhamma, we can probably say that we're such a small minority, not even probably 1%, considering the population of Australia. So obviously we will experience some difficulties and obstacles in our training. Not only here, but also Geshe says that coming from a background in which people are, for most of the day, are involved with undertaking study and reflection and meditation and retreat, even in such an environment, you still encounter difficulties and obstacles. Geshe remembers that when he was doing his studies, you go through different periods in which you study different texts. One of the texts is called text that is teaching the perfection system, the Abhisamalankara, and it takes 6 to 7 years to complete studying this text. So Geshe completed studying this text, and the next text in line was a text that was teaching the philosophical view of the middle way, the Madhyamika studies. Now, having finished the perfection study, this text that takes about 7 years to study, Geshe thought that it's time to go on a retreat as a wandering yogi. So he spoke to his teacher, and his teacher said that you shouldn't think about it like that because you haven't completed your studies. If you set it aside and think that now it's time to do a retreat, a long retreat as a wandering yogi, it means that you're not going to be able to complete your studies, and then it will act as an impediment for future development. So you have to make sure that at least you complete your studies. So Geshe listened to his teacher's advice. He continued with the study of the Madhyamika system. Then later on, he became an attendant of his teacher at the last stage of his teacher's life. Anyway, looking back in hindsight, Geshe says that he could see the validity of his teacher's advice, that things have turned actually better having completed his studies. So since this story is just kind of, you can say, an anecdote of how, showing how we can encounter difficulties, not only in this environment when we try to undertake a study, reflection, and meditation, also when you come from a background in which this is what people do most of the day, you still encounter such obstacles.
아주 최치부 갑들이야 아니 파르체세디 문지야 카고 베란다스라 최고 파르체세디 드라마다 연구다다 최고 파르체디 아니 베나 최고 편도메가 통대디 최고 파르체 임바디 셰모고 버려스 아니 직출리야 네바메바 통야디 최고 파르체 아니 타 라마 게비신이야 견 통야디 최고 파르체 저 참고 총고 접발이야 견 통야디 최고 파르체 또 참로 최고 파르체 로 먼저 라마람 시온디기 강라에 견 마다스 연된 때다 연된 때바는 연된 용거리스 견 때바는 견 절그세디 담가라서 담가로 딘자 아니 간지 숑 첨보 그 레야 가서다 가주스기 론 디투두체 아니 숑 첨보도 통박이 아니 냠는 디체야기 탑시지 딘디 갑둘레야 강한 태바나 디 파르첼지 텔 돈렌신 드바이나 Geshe gyatama tarchin tuwachik yunguyosaresro.
Often we find it difficult to recognize obstacles when they occur. Sometimes when we think that this Dharma is not giving us any benefit, that's an obstacle. Thinking that it doesn't have the ability to help us, that's an obstacle. Starting to see faults in our lamas or spiritual teachers is an obstacle. Starting to see faults in our fellow practitioners, that's an obstacle. So we often find it difficult to identify those obstacles when they arise. But as one of the instructions for practice, a personal instruction found in the Lamrim says, don't look for faults in others, observe the good qualities. Rather than looking for the faults, look for the good qualities. So we not only take that into our practice, we also attempt to practice in a way that accords with the instructions that we find in the great classics, the great systems. And in so doing, we make sure that we do not succumb to obstacles. We develop a greater fortitude, a greater determination to make sure that come what may, we're not going to give up. We're not going to succumb to those obstacles. We're going to outdo them.
어디로저래 딘자 아니 다 추 parchi 추 지엘야 아니 가게 마용 야게 샤브름 약슈디 parchi 도야 약슈디 캠드사야 레숭구도 아스라 캠드사야 레숭구도스 티난기다 캠드기 칙디 아니 벽이 단다 겔론 라긴 게바지기 송샤 디 아니 나란 샘라베 아니 테부 총송스라디 ngaran jan shegora ani kongi namu gurube namu burdaya namu dharmaya namu sangaya sedi pene phege toni kamro sayali ani phege lecture ke toni kamro de sana chenlab che dus gen khoran ranaya nyamnyon chonsons o dindi sonja dingi jaja jadam injiri samgu dusra lama chebe nalaya ani di thara 비 lecture ke 시샤진이 샤고야게 균생식 얘기로 와서 진짜 아니 나는 사물로기 아니 취제야 발치 용의 갑둘라 제 문제비 갑둘라 아니 캠로디 까마 사치너와 베나 친구 자타카시 베나 니마치려야 사토반두 산 간지 캠드롬 범터 카시 사바이나 자차 자탐바 카요 라요기 아니 펜도 용구여서리스
So when we encounter obstacles to a Dharma practice and we're applying ways to overcome the obstacles that we face, one of the things that we can take up is a recitation of refuge. Geshe was listening to an advice that was given by a senior monk, a Tibetan senior monk, who said that when we use a recitation of refuge as a way to overcome our obstacles, when we attempt to practice the Dhamma, rather than doing the recitation in Tibetan or here we can probably also say English, rather than doing them in Tibetan, then it's better to do them in Sanskrit, because the recitation in Sanskrit, Namo Gurubhya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya, has a lot of blessing, a lot of power. So Geshe thought that this advice is really potent. So when we face obstacles and difficulties, if we take up a recitation of the refuge verse, if we do it a few hundred or a few thousands a day, a few malas a day, if we work out towards an accumulation of 100,000 recitations, certainly Geshe believes that it will bring us benefits.
아니 벽에를 저 라마를 잡으셔서 맞아와 벽이 레이저 게 시샤 샤고야디 나 오늘디 견제 전부 얘기를 삼고도스라.
So in the Guru Puja, for example, this verse Namo Gurubhya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Dhammaya is found in Sanskrit rather than translating that into Tibetan. So Geshe feels that it does for us indicate the importance of reciting it in the original language in Sanskrit.
언데레셔다 드니 단니 군주 찬주고 샘종의 름바 된돈 찬주 샘종의 름바 담보 택진긴 주고 샘게 코나 템바 세티 샘종의 름바니 셰보스.
Anyway, looking at the text, as we're covering cultivating the conventional awakening mind or awakening bodhicitta, it says there are two approaches to the basic practice of developing the precious awakening mind. The dealing with the process of training in the conventional awakening mind, and that involving the process of cultivating the ultimate awakening mind. The former includes an explanation of how we are able to enter the great vehicle only by activating the altruistic mind of enlightenment, and it followed by a description the actual techniques for cultivating the precious awakening mind.
대래 담보다 태보 첨불은 주고 샘게 코나 땜바세. 당한주 태보 첨비구 추라 태보 첨비구 추 지기 여반자 태보 첨비구 추진 태보 첨비구 추 로다 만로기 피기 따지고 산섬 떠디 가르에스 라운디 찬주구 샘 군주 찬주구 샘 코나라이라리기레스 군주 찬주구 샘 종기 썸로디 콜롱디여나 캐랑기 콜롱디 토니 아니 릉아 이숨기 자와 가르치나 아니 태버침비 취라 로데바치 텐디기 아니 샘기기 somebody 메나 아니 자와 가르치바이나야 samlu kharta bayna ya gom khar gya bayna ya theba chimbi chelan rogmu dasra o disungores tan jugos se disungores.
Now here in this section it says that bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta, is the gateway for the practice of the Mahayana Dharma. It says the former includes an explanation of how we are able to enter the great vehicle only by activating the altruistic mind of enlightenment. So when it says that conventional bodhicitta is the gateway for the Mahayana Dharma, it means that if we develop the motivation of bodhicitta, whatever we practice, using that motivation will become a practice of the Mahayana Dharma. Whereas if we lack the motivation of bodhicitta, we might take up certain practices, we might involve in different types of virtue, but if those virtuous actions are not preceded by the motivation of bodhicitta, they do not become a Mahayana Dharma practice.
네, 단디난 디숭고라서 인지민이 계란 찬주고 쌤 정고다스 디숭고요 말아서 계란이 태버 침비 취 지긴 바이나 네버도 찬주고 쌤 고그레스 어디다 디 케바 뺀도 왔으라.
Now, here this text is not telling us that we have to train in bodhicitta. It's not what the text says. It says that if you want your practice to become a Mahayana practice, for that you have to train in bodhicitta. Right? So there's a difference here, right? So it's not that we have to practice bodhicitta. We have to do that only if we want our practice to become a practice of the Mahayana Dharma.
어디래다? 다 찬주고 쌤 단주 송어들이 단주 쉬바디 아니 찬주고 쌤그 싸워디 닌지레스 닌지디 초리와 마임바 탐제를 주비 닌지드레스 라운디 심전 탐제 간지 대원 되버다 동안 문제비기 심전 간지만 디 탐제 동아데트는 지마로 냠비기 샘 띵니 라 비리야 지 쥐버 마임바 샘 띵니 베고 동아데트는 지마로 냠비기 싸우지 게 투바이나 당원이 잔주고선 싸워 추구도 하서라 진짜 지 대시야운데 다 가르고도슬라지 지 비길이야 하장 그 당수 제거하사다 마가스 제거하사 지 매바치 소고도스라 디 여바이나 아니 잔주고선 그 싸워디 라도도스 아니 잔주고선 싸우면은 잔주고선 게임하러 잔주고선 마기나 계란기 대버침이 주지 nga chigu yus laba ina ya kyak zun re ma do tebajimi chu chago ma ro sra.
So the root of bodhicitta is compassion. So we need to develop compassion, but not a partial or biased compassion. We need to make sure that our development of compassion is extended equally to all, based on the recognition that all living beings are the same in seeking happiness and wanting to avoid suffering and pain. All of us, with our different wishes to be happy and to be free from suffering, we're still all the same in having that basic wish to be happy, to be well, and to be free from suffering and pain. So we use that as a basis for then thinking, may they, living beings, be free from suffering. So if we do that, we create the basis, the root of the development of bodhicitta. Whereas if we still maintain our attitude towards others in developing a great sense of closeness to some, in thinking that I like those people, whereas we still maintain also a great dislike to others and thinking that I don't like this group of people, or I don't like this individual. If we still maintain those strong like and dislike to others, the mind of enlightenment will not grow and develop. So we need to make sure that we diminish and eliminate this sense of partiality in which we classify living beings into those that we like and those that we dislike. We need to then equally wish all living beings to be free from suffering. So if we do not do that, we will destroy the basis for the development of bodhicitta.
대달 태버 첨불라 주거나 주비고 가니 냠나 대라 자비 파르드 침비 태버 첨보다 상아기 태버 첨부 니송기 니송기 텔리 첨비 태버 첨부는 매도 대니 관계 고른 주야 주고니 찬주기 셈 코나인데 대결라 남 깨바나 젠 칸야 마게자 태버 첨부 줘봐 인라 대단 남 타바나 동반이 또발로 소비 연대 지예장 년도로 소비 살 홍시 태버 첨불이 냠바 태버 첨비 존토말이 송시 리비장 드바이노스.
So then the text says, appreciating the value of the awakening mind, the entrance to the great vehicle. Since it is necessary to embark upon the great vehicle as pointed above, you may wonder, what is the entrance to such activity? In stating that there are two aspects to the great vehicle, the practices of the transcending perfections, the perfection system, and those of the secret mantra, Buddha the Conqueror has made it clear that there is no great vehicle practice other than these two. Then it says, the moment it arises in your mental continuum, even if you have not generated any other quality, you become a follower of the great vehicle. On the contrary, the moment it is lost, you fall to the level of the low vehicle, hears and so on, even though you may possess such qualities as an understanding of emptiness. Such a falling away, the great vehicle, is referred to in many great vehicle scriptures and can also be established by reason.
Yes. 대나 담보 태버 침부 주바야 샘디 깨버 잠진 줘라 치 태버 침비는 템바야 대다 태버 잠진 줘베나 아니 택침반이 샘디 여메 잠진 제순 정도 제도스 대단히 준주리 찬주 샘긴균나 기지긴 코유 zon라담이 냠타나 대시에 남기 세시 저저시 셰당 대린 산지 리수기 산지스수 다기도 시 샘케마타도 자스순저 송라스 말로샤라 송라 파버 참비 넘버 타발레 자 리지분다데 페나 도지rum부치니 차자 세지긴 캬버 파버 탐지시기 nen지 도지rum부치 미암멘돌라 오 탐지기 넘버 도고 리지부 대신도 탐지캠바 샘기비 도지rum부치 내된다 차야 년도다 란산지 용데 세지긴 탐지시기 nen지 잔주지 셈비 미암멘돌라 코오 타다 탐제다 넘버 도고 시 쪼발라 말럽자 셈디 요나 잔주 셈보 송바당 잔주 셈보 송바당 대샤서.
The text continues saying, so whether you are considered a practitioner of the great vehicle or not depends simply on whether you possess this attitude. In fact, The great vehicle is indicated by nothing but the presence or absence of this very state of mind. In this context, the Guide to a Bodhisattva Way of Life says, the instant the awakening mind is activated, those bound up in the prison of cyclic existence come to be known as sons of the Buddhas gone to bliss. And also today I've been born into the family of the Buddhas and have become the son of the awakened ones. This shows that as soon as you generate the awakening mind, you become a son of or daughter of the conquerors. The life story of the exalted Maitreya also says, O child of my family, here are some analogies. The awakening mind is like a diamond, even a fragment of which surpasses all kinds of valuable ornaments such as gold, which retains the name diamond and can eradicate all poverty. O child of my family, in the same way, the precious diamond-like mind, which gives rise to omniscience, even when it is weak, outshines all the golden qualities adorning the hearers and so to realizers. Because of it, you retain the name Bodhisattva and eradicate all the poverty of cyclic existence. So even though your conduct may not be distinguished, if you have engendered such a mind, you're referred to as sorry. So even if your conduct may not be distinguished, if you have engendered such a mind, you're referred to as a bodhisattva, an awakening warrior.
Terin sangi riksuki sangi susu takyurtos pigita chanjusembi dombosomi kabdudelaya and semkin that tene tamjalaya tan dagchini ya rigdan tumbilezum tiora rigdan tumbile gimen yobormungi tede chasını da tamja chiyajos da dindiji chombayna sem ding be ani dindiji chombayna da ani chanjusembi rik gavi sesedi körbares ra ani 대버침비 원리 대버침비다 냠렘바 차그도스 다 딘디치 용야디 소소수 락발아야 요 대버치 로 디차그도스.
This section that we read through, quoting verses from Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, mentioned this verse, and today I've been born into the family of the Buddhas and have become a son of the awakening mind. So following that, Shantideva also says in his text, and also whatever action I undertake, I will make sure that it is compatible with this family of the Buddhas, with the Mahayana family. I will not do any action, I will not take up any action that will sully this family of Buddhas. So when we develop that determination, and those verses are cited in the context of taking upon ourselves the Bodhisattva vow, committing ourselves to act in the conduct, to perform the conduct of bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, we make sure that in whatever action we're going to take, whatever thing we're going to do, we're not going to undermine our practice of bodhicitta. So in this way, we then create we develop the Buddha potential that we have, the Buddha lineage that we have. If we do that, then we become practitioners of the Mahayana Dharma, which means that it is completely up to us. It's completely in our hand to make sure that whatever we practice becomes a practice of the Mahayana Dharma.
Gombuluduki Gans, Dani Danjidin, the Lame Chanju, Tumdona, Tija, Zawa Chanjusem. Ramangabota dance, son the Kerangi, Tabachimbu Church in Debaina, and Kerangi Sumjan Tamji, Sangi Common Dugiabana, Chanju Sem Kigures. These are the Chanju Sem Redados, or this one goes.
And we continue with a few more quotes, basically referring to the same point. Beginning with a quote is taken from the Protecting Nagarjuna's Precious Garland, who says, if you and the world wish to attain unsurpassable full awakening, the source is the awakening mind, bodhicitta. which should be as stable as the king of mountains. Again, it refers to the same point that if you want your practice to be a Mahayana practice that will lead to the state of Buddha, you have to develop bodhicitta.
대다 니바기 시제된 데에서 또 규기 론 당도 된자 간지 도다 규 가을라 또 바이나야 아니 대바 침비 싸워디 아니 잔주고 셈이 바디 drugores라 티 drugores.
And following that, we have a quotation from the Vajrapana Initiations Tantra. So previously we said that when we look at the writings of the Buddha, or the teachings of the Buddha, both in the perfection system, the sutra side, and also the tantric side, the system of mantra or tantra, it is said that the basis for the practice of the Mahayana is bodhicitta. So also here in this tantra, it says, Dear Loimbe, says, "O great Bodhisattva, the great mysteries of this extremely vast mandala of Dharani, which are extremely..." Oh, okay.
chanju sambu songa chenbu kingor de shindu gyachewan dedan shindu saban dedan timba kawatan sawa legyan chesan simjen deba jennamla tendu murwan dene lana doji kyoji shindu komba shik medi dene kun matun de simjen chetawal tal shebar cha lana doji meba jambal kanda chanju ki sem gombala shubatan 강기 체 대다 chanju sember gywa ti che jambar chanju sembi joba sanga 고주비 chanju sember 대다 이시침보 원구의 송아지 긴골도 주고 차에 간다 chanju sem joba 만gywa 되는 슈벌 메자디 대다는 긴골 따와야 무슈고 대다라는 차갸다 상가 때마다 미차우 시송소스.
So just reading through this quotation from the Vajrapana Initiation Tantra, which says, "O great Bodhisattva, the great mysteries of this extremely vast mandala of Dharani, which are extremely profound, unfathomable, rare, and secret, should not be revealed to evil beings. So Vajrapani, what you have said is unique and extremely rare. Therefore, how is one to explain it to those beings who have never heard it before?" To this, Vajrapani replied, "O Manjushri, at such a time that anyone who is engaged in meditation on the awakening mind, bodhicitta, has achieved that state of mind, then, O Manjushri, those who perform the activities of a bodhisattva, specifically the activities involving secret mantra, should enter into the Dharani Mandala by receiving the great wisdom initiation. Anyone who has not accomplished the awakening mind, bodhicitta, should not engage in these practices. They should neither view nor enter the mandala. To them, the gestures and details of secret mantra should never be shown." 그런데 소원인데 지기도.
관계긴 글랍사라. 데르다 디자 난주다 페나 상아기 지기 원쿠르스 라바이나 아니 미망 타주치다 drugrasra kaushu chegdasra the ina dina kharsongdo kyangi sanga gu chu tensagi nedelya kandaji gore slavdi chanjug sem yona tenchogre mena kinkor zamya ta chog mardas ra ta chog mardas ti bigita tak chebu ton ra yaw doji changi gyu khorani disongdasra chu dabu khorangi any ni chu number ni nani do danga ni yebi nani ani gi kasota lana mebi gi chu samo nga gi nyamlen dilaya jugela ya kyaran injimi chanjuk sem gogres te mena kyaran gi di ani bi kingor samaya ta chog mardas o dis tak chubiton tanganzu di mebiton di chebaina ani nyeba jire madobe ani pendo khaye mebachik
So here in quoting this passage from Vajrapana Initiation Tantra, it emphasizes that also for the practice of mantra, we need bodhicitta. So Tantra, or as it is called here in this section, the secret mantra, is a practice that is becoming more and more popular at this point in time. So many people like to practice Tantra, but here, as it is said in this Tantra, the prerequisite for the practice of Tantra is the development of bodhicitta. So without practicing bodhicitta, let alone not being able to receive this empowerment into this Tantra, let alone not being able to do that, even looking at the mandala is not permitted without the development of bodhicitta. So then when we think about it, when we think about what Vajrapani said here in relation to the system of sutras or to the system of mantra, if we want to practice the unsurpassed Dharma, the unsurpassed Tantra, what we need to do is to do that on the basis of bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, without which, as it is said here in this passage, we're not going to even be permitted to observe the mandala. So then thinking of our attitude then toward our practice, if we then become eager to practice Tantra, but we don't make sure that first of all, we begin with cultivating bodhicitta, then we will only accrue faults rather than using that practice for bringing benefit to ourselves. That's all. Shall we leave the text here for today? No objections? All right. You can vehemently object. Anyway.
아니 가서 돈다니 공상레스. 인캬는 준죽도다 로종도 딘디 식투나 아니 데린라야 다야고 뺀도 아스라 안가라 도진은 가즈사 빠산라야 표 네레 게시 겐 람람 방가운 푼소세 뱀마스바드니 냠렘바 아니 슈즈레스라 안 공기 손점 아니 탭시치라스가라 아니 탭릴라야 페시 쇼고 둔잘하라지도 디 탭시 등이 눈더니나 로고 사운드 담자샤니 아니 탭지 제가 다 가즈사 빠산니 진단다보는가 탭치야지기 제강의 로 사이언스 nga 디릴라 디 사주인 계란저 디나시 디 로종 디소도 준주도 딘디 안 대토바는 대야부도 아스라.
So we're going to finish the session here for now. We're going to take a couple of weeks break from Geshe's teachings, but not break from teachings in general. So we're going to have still things happening in a spiritual program on the Fridays and Sundays, and likewise other activities. So you can definitely still come to take a look at our calendar and see what's on, and just continue to come if you wish to do so. And in the meantime, Geshe is recommending, if you want to do some more study, it's good to read through Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, and also to read through this text, Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun. Geshe got recently a set of books from a great scholar, someone that is called Gen Lamrimpa, Ngawan Punsok, who composed a series of books, and Geshe got those books, and they're really thick. You know, one of them, the thickest one, have about 700 pages. So Geshe is determined to read through all of them. He kind of made that pledge that he's going to cover all of them. So far, within a span of 1.5 weeks, he's read through one of them, and is still continuing, is still intending to continue with his reading. Chega. Okay, so actually he read only half of this massive volume. So he's still is planning to finish reading this book in the next couple of weeks. So there you go. You have a personal, Geshe said that he has a personal goal, and you also can have a personal goal to read through Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, through Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun. This will form good basis for continuing to develop our understanding and also practice. Well, if the manager will still continue to make sure that we have excellent food, then Geshe is promising to complete the reading of the text. Anyway, Let's do some dedication prayers. Where is the file? Just a second. All right. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen and rise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, might quickly attain the state of the Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Savior of the Snowland teachings and transmigrative beings, makes extremely clear the path that is unification of emptiness and compassion. To the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Finally, you uphold the Sibiru's moral way, O seventh and manifold bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, several of myself and others, your disciples. Please, please live long. Thank you.